Welcome everybody, so I am back and bringing you guys a brand new video game review. This is going to be for Halo Combat Evolved. So if you see an image of Halo Combat Evolved in the background, that is going to be the video game that we're going to be discussing today. I don't know if we're going to be discussing purely the Halo Combat Evolved Anniversary or Halo Combat Evolved, just the original version on the Xbox, but I think I'm going to be talking about the game just in terms of the story and the gameplay experience as well as the multiplayer and sort of the memories that I had while playing it, because honestly this is one of my favorite video games of all time. This is created by Jason Jones, who's pretty much the video game director for Halo Combat Evolved, as well as you got people like Joseph Staten, who is pretty much the game's story designer. You also got Martin O'Donnell, who's pretty much the video game composer for the game. And this is one of those games that was pretty much revolutionary at the time. This was originally developed as sort of an RTS game, and then it kind of went to a first-person shooter and FPS in sort of the very first FPS genre. Doom and Wolfenstein really helped propel sort of video games like Halo to be made. This was one of the first cinematic experiences that I think people had when playing a video game, and I really do think that the story really does hold up. It is pretty much a hero's journey. We've got Master Chief, who is this last Spartan. He was abducted at birth by Oni, inducted into the Spartan 2 program, given augmentations to kind of make him sort of a Spartan super soldier, and he's one of the last of his kind. Halo Reach explains that Reach was attacked by the Covenant. The Covenant was this alien race that was hell-bent on humanity's destruction, finding the Halo Rings. The Halo Rings are this weapon that is designed to stop an organism known as the Flood. The Flood takes over the host body, and you eventually do get to meet these creatures in the video game, and pretty much becomes sort of a zombie-like virus that kind of spreads over time, and it's really devastating to sort of the ecosystem and the area that it kind of inhabits, and that is one of the things that you later discover is going on in terms of the Halo Ring. Master Chief is on the Pillar of Autumn. The Pillar of Autumn is attacked by the Covenant and boarded, eventually destroyed as Master Chief flees. Then Master Chief crash lands on the Halo Ring, discovering that there is this soldier as well as Sergeant Johnson, who you later meet along the way. He pretty much escapes the installation that he's on, and the Halo Rings are known as installations. There's installation 01, there's installation 02, 3, and 4, and in different installations as you go along to kind of give them a designation of what Halo Ring that you're on. You later find out that inside the ring that there's this thing called the Sacred Icon, which is basically this MacGuffin that everybody is pretty much searching for within the video game. Once they get this MacGuffin or the Sacred Icon and activate it within the Halo Ring, it lights this entire thing that allows the Halo Rings to be activated and cause an explosion on a galactic scale, as they say later on in the Halo franchise. And you later learn that the reason why the Covenant is searching for this Halo Ring is that they're actually searching for the Halo Rings because they believe that this will give them powers and that it'll make them pretty much live eternally. And you later learn that this isn't the case, that this is pretty much to stop sort of the organism that I mentioned earlier called the Flood, and that once these Halo Rings are activated, it'll pretty much wipe out every single life form in the universe. And that is a big problem for Master Chief, because Master Chief, as well as the human race, is trying to fight the Covenant. The Covenant have tried to invade Earth, and they're looking for Earth in order to be able to conquer, destroy it as well. And they view that humanity as a threat to this great journey that you later discover in the other Halo games after this. And when I played this game for the first time, I was not, I liked the story and everything, but I did not fully understand the story that was going on until Halo 2 and Halo 3. Halo 2 for me is the peak in terms of Halo games, but Halo Combat Evolved is really the thing that kind of started the ball and really got things started in terms of the Halo video game franchise. I think under the Bungie days of the Halo franchise, Halo 1 through sort of Halo Reach, those were my favorite Halo video games of all time, and I just recently got finished with Halo Reach, so maybe I'll talk about that later on my channel. I still have yet to beat Halo 3 again, which I think would be kind of fun to kind of discuss with you guys my thoughts and opinions of that on my channel as well. But I do have a video game channel where I've kind of gone through Halo CE a little bit and Halo 2, but I played these games multiple times throughout the years, and Halo is one of those franchises that I've come back to from multiple playthrough sessions and stuff like that and beaten over and over again, and I find something new about these games every single time I play them. This is one of those video game franchises that really inspired me to become sort of a storyteller, much the same way that George Lucas was inspired by some of the movies and stuff like that that he had seen as a kid. I think video games for me were that thing that kind of got me interested in world building, kind of building sort of universes of my own, and kind of the reason why I'm sort of an amateur screenwriter at the moment. And personally for me, I think that Halo's story is one of those things that's really cool. You've got this Spartan named Master Chief. He never really shows his face. He never really shows who he is underneath sort of the exoskeleton suit that he kind of wears. He's pretty much like a big giant green walking tank throughout most of this game, and that is a story development thing, because you are supposed to be Master Chief throughout this entire video game. You're supposed to be the Spartan super soldier, and that is why, even though he doesn't really say that many one-liners in the game, when he does kind of say one-liners, you kind of understand what Master Chief is going through. You kind of get that through the head movements that he does throughout this entire story and sort of the badass one-liners that he does give. You also get to meet Captain Keyes, who's pretty much helping Master Chief throughout the way, as well as Cortana. Cortana is this AI companion that is trying to help Master Chief kind of survive throughout the entire experience with dealing with the Covenant as well as the Flood. Everybody kind of views her as being a little bit more overly sexualized throughout the modern sort of video game era, but I don't think that's the case at all. I think that she is an AI system, so it doesn't really make sense why she'd be given clothes anyway. It's a video game character, so I don't know why it has to be an issue to begin with. But without Master Chief and without Cortana, humanity within this video video game franchise would not have survived sort of the Covenant human war, which they're in. They would not have survived the Flood, and she was an integral part throughout the entire video game franchise. So I don't understand sort of the notion where people are like, oh, you can't look up to Cortana or Master Chief because she's an overly sexualized character. I don't believe that to be the case at all. I think they're going for the fact that Cortana is supposed to be like the girlfriend that everybody knows and loves, sort of like that, girlfriend that we've all had at some point in time in our life, and you want to follow her, you want to listen to her because she's giving you advice on how to defeat the enemies that you're facing along the way. And this game really relies on the 30 seconds of fun. I think that was one of the things that one of the game developers said when you watch sort of the behind the scenes documentaries within this game, and I really do think that this game really does hit those marks. There's a lot of really cool sort of action set pieces within this video game franchise. You got sort of the hunt for the sacred icon, which takes place inside of one of the Forerunner structures. The Forerunner structures are the people that came before, the humans and stuff like that, and they actually built the Halo rings, and they kind of made a safe haven so that way if they ever needed to, they could activate the Halo rings and eventually stop the Flood from actually spreading across the universe. They're trying to protect sort of human civilization as well as any other species that would come into contact with these Halo rings. And you don't really learn that much about the Forerunners beforehand. You later learn throughout the entirety of the video game franchise kind of who they were, and that they were kind of like the precursors to the human civilization as well as the Covenant, and they kind of inspired the Covenant to have sort of that religious hierarchy that they eventually do have within the games. You have sort of different enemy AI types such as the Grunts, which are these like 3-foot tall sort of cute little alien creatures that you kill throughout the game. They have like a backpack and a rebreather system, and if you take out their backpack and stuff like that, you can kill them easily within the game. But it's kind of like a chess piece, like where you have the pawns, you've got sort of the queens and the knights and stuff like that, and you've got to like protect the queen as well as the king throughout the entirety of the chess match. That is kind of what Halo is to me. Like if you do one thing wrong within this video game, then your chess pieces are going to suffer because of that. And I really do think that Halo is one of those video games that started the modern day first-person shooter genre. I think that other games like Call of Duty and Battlefield franchise really borrowed the video game mechanics that Halo CE and Halo 2 and Halo 3 kind of set forth, because they really did modernize sort of the original Call of Duty genre that was dominating at the time, which is basically just going back to World War II and stuff like that. And now we got this really cool expansive sci-fi universe that you can explore, that you can find more about the lore and the franchise through different books and mediums and stuff like that. And I think that this video game franchise not only inspired me, but inspired other people that were interested in stuff like science fiction, especially stuff like Star Wars. This game is comparable to Star Wars in a way because there is a really good hero's journey. You've got Master Chief, who's a Spartan that's kind of thrown into the mix, doesn't really want to be there, doesn't want to have to deal with this. You think that you're originally fighting insurrectionists, but you're actually fighting the Covenant, which is what Oni's trying to keep the human civilization from figuring out that there actually is alien life outside in the universe, and that's what they're kind of fighting against. You've got the mystery of the Halo rings. You don't really know at first what they're about. You later learn that they're actually a weapon and designed to sort of destroy life as we know it, and it becomes one of these hero's journey moments where you kind of learn a little bit more about Sergeant Johnson as well. He's this badass Marine. He's got a bunch of really cool one-liners throughout the game. I think Sergeant Johnson is really the person that we're seeing through the lens of in terms of the Halo games. I think that Sergeant Johnson later becomes even more of a prominent character in Halo 2 and Halo 3, which are two of my actual favorite Halo games of all time. I like Halo 2 a little bit more than Halo 2 or Halo 3 or Halo Reach, but I think Halo Combat Evolved was a really good starting point for the Halo franchise. I think it's one of those games that really did shape sort of what the Xbox could become, and I really did, at first I didn't really play the single player campaign for Halo CE. I actually played the multiplayer component on my friend's Xbox back in the day. He had an Xbox, he had Halo Combat Evolved, and we'd always, play it whenever I would go over to his house and stuff like that. And later I'd eventually get an Xbox and I played Halo Combat Evolved, and then I played Halo 2. I actually played Halo 2 first before I went back to Halo CE and played through the single player, and it later kind of got me into the Halo franchise, and it became sort of one of my favorite video games of all time. That is one of the main reasons why I'm still talking to you guys about this on my channel. I think that everybody that is a fan of video games should definitely check out Halo at some point in time in their life. I think it's one of those video games that will be studied, especially since Halo the Master Chief Collection came out. And while the Master Chief Collection had sort of a rocky start in terms of gameplay and sort of the single player aspect right away off the bat, I think that they've made sort of improvements to it, especially 343 Industries, who's now kind of taken over for it. One of the things that is interesting is that 343 is actually named after 343 Guilty Spark from Halo CE and Halo 2. Guilty Spark is kind of like C3PO in a way. He's sort of an AI floating robot, and then he kind of has these sort of one-liners throughout this entire game that kind of give you exposition of what you need to do in terms of stopping the Halo rings and the Flood and stuff. And I think that's one of the things that really did, get people to compare sort of Halo and Star Wars together, because you do have sort of these AI companions that do kind of act as sort of your exposition dumps and stuff throughout the game. And I don't see that as a negative. I think that Guilty Spark is a really cool character. When I was in school, I could, draw him really well and stuff like that. In terms of when I was in school, I was really into art and sort of drawing Halo characters. I could draw Master Chief and Guilty Spark and some of the other Halo characters really well. And I think on some of my social media platforms, I've actually shared some of my Halo drawings and stuff from when I was a kid, especially sort of my Master Chief drawing, which even when I was drawing that in school, people were coming over and like, holy crap, like that's a really kick-ass, Halo drawing. How did you do that and stuff? And I was basically just looking at a book and kind of drawing drawing it from what I saw from the book cover and stuff like that I had at the time. And I had all the Halo Eric Nyland books. I had sort of the Cole Protocol, which is one of my favorite Halo novels. And, you know, I just think that the Halo universe is one of those universes that has really cool dialogue, really cool one-liners, a lot of really cool replayability factor. There's a lot of lore and mystery that surrounds sort of the Halo structures and the Halo rings, and especially different Halo characters that you meet along the journey. And that is one of the reasons I don't want to do sort of a breakdown of the Halo video games. I want to just give you guys my thoughts and opinions of the Halo franchise as a whole, because I want you guys to experience this without sort of spoilers and to experience this sort of evolving story as you go along, because I do think it's one of those stories that will live on over time. I think that is one of those stories that even to this day is getting new media in terms of TV, and I would hope one day maybe a Halo film, because I definitely do think that a Halo movie would bridge the gap between gamers and non-gamers, and that people would want to go see that in the theaters. I certainly would. It's one of those things that I requested as a Halo fan, and I think that the music in this game is really good, especially the Mjolnir mix, or the Mjolnir mix, whatever you like to call it, that was produced by Martin O'Donnell. Some of the scoring in this game is the best scoring that I've ever heard in a video game, especially when you're rocking down the roads and stuff in a Warthog, and you've got the Mjolnir mix or the Mjolnir mix playing in the background, and you got sort of the Master Chief theme going on and stuff, and you got different Spartans or Marines and stuff in it, and you're just going down with your friends and stuff in co-op mode and stuff like that. That's awesome. The story that Joseph Staten pretty much created for this Halo franchise feels like it's been lived in. The environments itself feel dirty and grimy and feels similar to that of the Alien franchise, where it's kind of, it feels lived in, and that's one of the things that I really do like about this franchise, that it feels like it's something that could exist in much the same way that Star Wars felt like it could exist in the 1970s and 80s, and even to the modern era and stuff like that, where they're still making Star Wars films. While they're not as good as the older films in the franchise, I still view that the Star Wars films are really good, especially the OT and the prequel trilogies, which I happen to enjoy a lot. But, you know, I view that Halo is very comparable in a way, because there is so much medium, there is so much room to explore this universe, and I really do hope that Halo Infinite is actually good, because I would really like to see Halo come back in terms of, you know, the gameplay and the combat and sort of the story element, because that was one of the things that really did make Halo CE back in the day and kept me and my friends coming back and really inspired me to kind of create my own stories. But the different variety of enemy types is also a factor that I really like, that you could kind of take out sort of the little ones before you go to the bigger guys, or you could take out the bigger guys before you go to the littler ones, and you kind of had sort of that sort of chess variant to it, where you had to kind of think about your strategy before you go along. It's one of those reasons that keeps me coming back, in the different variety of weapons that you get, such as the shotgun, the assault rifle, which is really cool, the pistol, which is a little bit overpowered, which kind of acted like a sniper rifle, where it had really a long range scope. Even in multiplayer, I thought it was a little bit cheap, but over time we eventually got, you know, the sniper rifle, and some of those weapons got nerfed. I really don't think that it was really that big of a loss, because it kind of made Halo a little bit more balanced overall. But overall, I'd have to get Halo Combat Evolved about an A+. I definitely think it's one of those A+ video games. While I don't think it's necessarily perfect per se, I think that Halo 2 is certainly a little bit better than that, and I think that over time this became sort of a cult classic, especially within sort of people that played video games like myself. And this is one of my favorite video games of all time, and kind of the reason why I'm here telling stories to this day, and even have a YouTube channel talking about Halo, because it is one of those things that really got me inspired to do this stuff. So those are my thoughts and opinions. Let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think of Halo Combat Evolved, and what you guys think of the Halo franchise overall, and if you guys are excited for Halo Infinite, since that is coming out soon. Let me know if you want me to review any of the other Halo games, such as Halo 3 and Halo Reach. Maybe I could review Halo 4 and 5, even though 4 and 5 really aren't my favorite Halo games. It's really sort of the Halo 1 through Halo Reach days, but I'm willing to do that because these are one of my favorite video game franchises of all time. So let me know in the comment section below what you guys think, and as always guys, rate, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.